Tonight, Tuesday, October 16th, Sherwood City Council meeting. Call to order, and please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sylvia, roll call, please.
Mayor Mays is absent tonight. Council President Garland.
Here.
Councilor Kuiper.
Here.
Councilor Young.
Here.
Councilor Browse.
Here.
Councilor Griffin.
Here.
And Councilor Rosner. Actually, Councilor Rosner and Mayor will be attending us via conference call.
And are they on yet, or are we going to call them in a little bit?
They will attend during item 8A,
Okay.
which will require all 7 of you voting. So we're going to contact them at that time.
Okay.
And just a question, is this the first time that we've ever had 2 people call in from China for a Sherwood City Council meeting?
At least in the 7 years I've been here, yes.
Imagine it probably is.
Sylvia, you've been here longer. Is this the first?
From Colombia. Colombia, yeah.
Very international.
We're very international.
All right. So moving on, approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Approval of October 2nd, 2018 City Council meeting minutes.
I move consent. Second.
All right. Do I have a vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Moving through consent agenda. Any citizen comments this evening? Excellent. We will then move right into our presentation. Tonight we're happy to welcome Chief Weiss from the TVFNR to do a State of the District presentation.
Thank you, councilors. My name is Derek Weiss. Push the button.
Still it's green. Push it hard.
No, not that one. The one on the mic. I got it. The one that says push. I believe the good Captain Hanlon sent me up, so thank you, Ty. Good evening, councilors. My name is Derek Weiss, and I'm happy to be here tonight to present the State of the District for Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. It was probably in 1998 when I first moved into the Sherwood area. I lived out by the Magnus Tree Farm to the south of the city here, and in that time, a lot of things have changed. I get to wear glasses. My hair is a little bit different color. But look at the city and the way the city's changed as well. I noticed the Center for the Arts that's built now. The development around Langer Farms is built up. A new high school is going in the ground shortly. So I think what we can always say is the constant is change. And with that, we will make changes as well. We continue to adapt to the areas that we serve, and Sherwood is no exception to that. So with that, I'll get into the presentation. I don't see it up on the big screen, but
I don't either. Brad.
oh, there it goes. There it goes. So what all of this information truly is data. It's a lot of data. And Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue is driven by data. A sheet such as this is used to figure out where we'll place stations in the coming years and how the stations and the apparatus that we have in those stations serves the communities that we serve. On this particular chart, what you can see is total incidents for half the year, 737 incidents. On the left-hand side, under EMS, you'll see that it says 80.7% of the calls in the Sherwood area are EMS, which is consistent with national standards and consistent with all the other areas that we serve. If you go slightly below that, it's the situation found. And we have a fantastic dispatch center. They answer calls and they try to dispatch units based on what they hear. There's only so much of the information they can ascertain over the phone. So when they arrive on scene, our crews do a report and they fill in the line that says, this is what we actually found. So truly the calls that we go to that are EMS tend to be 72 to 75% of the calls that we respond to. You can go further down the chart, down towards the bottom on the left-hand side. It shows all of those calls in the first half of the year and what time of day they occurred. We can set resources and put resources into the system based on time of day. We don't have to have a resource that necessarily is staffed 24/7. It could be 40 hours of the week on a particular day of the week or days of the week. If you move to the right from there to the pie chart, that shows the calls and the percentage of calls on different days of the week. What we found initially when we first put a new medic into the Sherwood area was that the percentage of calls tended to occur on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And so rather than do the standard 40-hour unit that went Tuesday through Friday, we shifted it to more of that weekend set. And if you add up the percentages in there, it still holds fairly true, 57, 59%, something like that for those calls during the day. A little bit more to the right, you'll see the calls trending and how they've trended over the past few years. There's a slight uptick. With 737 calls to date, it's kind of hard to tell how accurate that data is. And on the right-hand side, which is fairly crucial to what I do, and I probably should have told you, I'm responsible for operations, so it's all the deployment, all the stations, fire prevention, planning. This is what my area of responsibility. So we look at the number on the right, which is the percentage of responses from that station. We'll do a deeper data dive into actual response reliability, but that's the ability for the units that are in your fire station to respond to calls in your city. 80% is quite good. We'd like to see it around 80%. If we can get above 80%, we do. Sherwood and King City area both had a dip several years ago. We recognize that dip, and then how do we respond to it? What resources can we put in the system so that your units are still where they need to be to respond to your calls and other units can help out? Below those percentages, that just shows you that station in King City is about 11% of the calls so far this year that they run in the Sherwood area. Station 34 in Tualatin, about 3%, and so on and so forth. This is a small depiction of the data that we will pull as we're evaluating stations. We'll take 5 years of data, we'll put it together in a graphic, something like this, and it starts to show us trends of where things are changing and where we need to adapt our resources. So several years ago, Newburgh was struggling to meet the responses in their area. They were struggling with staffing, and they came to Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue and asked us for help. So we engaged in a 2-year contract with Newburgh, and it's not just the city of Newburgh, it's the surrounding rural Newburgh Fire Protection District. So both those areas, we contracted with them for 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, they decided with vote that they would like to annex into Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. Those people in that area voted to join TVFNR, and then subsequent to that, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue residents had to vote whether or not to accept them. Our residents voted 97% in favor to bring Newburgh Fire, Newburgh City Fire, and Newburgh Rural Fire into the fire district. And I would like to point out too that any areas that we serve and any stations where we build, they all affect each other. It's a system that we use to respond to resources. So in the same way that we can have a hazmat team in Sherwood without a hazmat team physically stationed here, it's that resources working together, bordering areas, help each other out within our district, mutual aid, if you will. And so we're able to furnish resources like trucks, tech rescue, water rescue, hazmat, and other resources for the good of the group. That's how we do it. So not that long ago, I think a couple weeks, and Chief Sherrard or Stefan could probably correct me, it was a couple weeks ago on a Saturday, we had our grand opening for Station 55. Station 55 is in Westland on the top of the hill. And through data, years of data, it demonstrated that we had a tough time getting to the top of that hill. Whether it was geography or station location or topography, we just couldn't get there. There was also a need for a truck resource in that area. Sherwood has a Newburgh truck and a Tigard truck that can service both edges of the Sherwood area and the heart of the Sherwood area. We relied on Clackamas County to provide truck service primarily for that Westland area. So I'll talk a little bit about our insurance services office rating a little bit later on, but truck companies and personnel and apparatus and location all affect that score or that grade. So this was a great grand opening. It took a year or so to build, and it is now staffed with a truck, and they can swing to an engine if the call dictates that call for service. So data. I talked about this a little bit. These are some of the things that we consider when we're going to site a new fire station, like the Station 55. As I mentioned before, we'll take 5 years of data and we'll crunch all the numbers to help us determine the right location for that station and the right types of assets that will be staffed in that station. This is not something that we take lightly. We've asked Planning Division to work on a 2, 5, and 10-year plan that they should roll out in July of next year, which is going to take every station that you see on that map and tell us, is that station in the right location, and are the apparatus in that station in the right place? We've let all the crews know that the resources that are in your station today may change tomorrow based on what does it look like with these factors? Population density, incident types, what's the traffic look like? We all know it's a little more challenging to get around these days. And of course, the topography. I don't know if I have a slide on the stations, but I would like to point out that to your right of in the middle of the map on the right, that's Station 55. A little higher up to the left by Hillsborough is Station 62. So what data showed us was at the time we built Station 62, the city of Hillsborough didn't touch it. And now it's literally across the street from that station. So by looking at that data, we were able to determine by moving slightly to the east, north, and south, we would be able to better serve the residents of TVFNR. It's the same types of things we do for the entire district everywhere. And it doesn't show it on this map either, but there's another location to the north of Sherwood, right around Roy Rogers and Beef Bend. Yeah, it's not on there. Where that's a site that we're looking to in that general area. We can just about drop a pin of where a station should go in the district. The challenge is finding the property right where that pin drops, but that's what we'd like to do.
Do you have a time frame on that?
That station? Do not. No, so right now they're looking for property. If we find the right property, we can purchase the property. And then it's usually about a year after that where we can do it. It's all dependent on several factors, of course, but that's the location that we're looking at.
And is that the only location, or are there other ones that are being looked at?
For new stations? So I can tell you between here and Newburgh is a rural area, and so we've looked at that area. There is an area that's not on the map that's actually west of Newburgh as well. There's an area right by I-5 in Bridgeport that we just secured the property for that location. So that new station will be built before too long. We're looking down in the Charbonneau area, which we've been looking for a number of years. Again, the pin drops, tells us where to put it. It makes complete sense. Finding a spot, it's real hard to do. We have a station location site already purchased up below 72, which is at the top of your map. I think those are the stations that we've outlined so far.
How much property does it usually involve?
The one that we're looking at, which is it's going to be to the east of Station 62, that's an acre, which is about the smallest size lot we would ever want for a station. And actually, we have to make some changes with the station to fit that size lot, so a couple acres is much better than that. This is my job, to find the stations and put the right resources in it, but if the stations are small and they have a single bay, it limits our ability to adapt and change in the future as the population grows or the call volume grows. And so I constantly press our logistics division to find a bigger spot, build a station that's adaptable, something that I don't have to put a portable outside in the following year. And so this station here in Sherwood has a community room, and I think when you get to an acre size, it's harder to put a community room in that station unless you go vertical. So those are the stations that are coming up. So I mentioned this before. This is Insurance Services Office, which what they do is they go around and versus a national standard, they check what you have. And there's a lot of different things. It has to do with how you're staffed. It has to do with your dispatch center. It has to do with your fire prevention and education, or as we call it, community risk reduction. It has to do with the water purveyors. It has to do with your ladder trucks and how many do you have and are they in the right location. And what they do is they rate you on a scale of 1 to 10. 12 Valley Fire and Rescue in all the areas that we serve, we've had a rating of 3 for many, many years. Now that's just in the cities by a fire station. As you start to move out, it becomes a 5 and a 5-1, an 8 and an 8 and a 10. And it gets higher and higher and higher. Well, we went for a re-rate and we were reevaluated as an organization and we achieved a 2. So if I leave you with nothing else this evening, it's check with your insurance company, because the 2 goes to anybody within 5 miles of a fire station. So it affects the fire portion of your insurance premium for your home insurance. And a lot of times people don't know that that's changed. We've advertised it as best we could, but if you check with your insurance company, they may not have you as a 2, and you may be a 2, and so then you should see a reduction in that portion of your insurance. So as I mentioned before, this has a lot to do with the stations, where they're located, and the apparatus. And so we did some consideration in terms of where we're staffed and what equipment do we need there. It did come into effect. It will in the future as we decide where to place stations in the 2, 5, and 10-year plan. So we do have a Class 2. It's great to say that we're in the top 3% in the country of about 46,000 fire departments that are rated. So
Wow.
it's quite good. And it's difficult and it's hard to figure out. You'd think just one little change would make a big difference in your rating, but it's It's very complicated. I liken it to a Rubik's Cube. It's hard to figure out exactly how to get the points that you need. So we're very proud of that. That is a fire hose with water. And the reason that we put this up here is because 12I Fire and Rescue had been doing things the same way, I would say pretty much since 1994 when I started with the fire district. It was pretty much the same hose. It was pretty much the same nozzles. We did things just like we did. And you would think after hundreds of years of fire service, what could you possibly change? How could you make it different or better? A couple years ago, we found that our large diameter hose, which is about 5 inches, it's a big hose, you wouldn't want to drive over it with your car. It was failing, and it wasn't defective, but it was failing, and it was no longer serviceable. Pieces of the inside of the hose would come off, and they could block the intake and block the water coming into the fire engine, which of course produces water
For
to
all
flow.
the hoses?
It happened in our a lot of the large diameter hose and some of our medium and smaller diameter hose. So rather than just say, okay, I'm going to buy the exact same hose like we've been doing for 30 years, we stopped and took a look at what we were doing and how we were fighting fire. We took a look from where we take water from a hydrant or a lake, all the way through the hose to the engine, out the engine, all the way to the nozzle, which is at the end of the hose that sprays the water. And we said we can do better. Believe it or not, a hose, to me, it's kind of like a 2x4. A 2x4 used to be 2x4. Hose wasn't the size that it was designed for. So it says it's 3, it says it's 5, but it wasn't. So we found a manufacturer of hose, and we led the charge across the nation to have them build the hose that's true diameter. So we can get the right volume of water at lower pressures out of the same hoses essentially that we were using before. We switched to a different nozzle. I don't know if you're familiar with nozzles, but you have your fog nozzle, which breaks up the water into little particles, and you have a smoothbore nozzle, which it comes out in a big glob, I'll tell you. So we decided to switch to the one that was smoothbore. We have 450 firefighters on the line. And if I was in this room today with the 5 of you and I said I have a Diet Coke, a Diet Pepsi, and a Sprite, and I'm going to convince you all to pick one, I would have a difficult time. We took 450 firefighters, everybody with an opinion and an experience in the fire service, and we said, you get this one. I know we like to eat and shop with places that have a lot of variety, but you get one. And we did it. And it started from the ground up, and they started training with it, and this is several years of training, and now it's deployed on the fire engines. Thankfully, the board supported us to purchase this new equipment, and I will give you one story of a fire not that long ago.
Chief, can I actually just stop you for just one quick second? And I apologize.
Okay.
We do have, we're getting some texts from China right now.
Oh, fantastic.
And there is a bit of a timing issue with where our mayor and our counselor is at, so.
Yeah, so I'm going to suggest, actually, out of fairness to our friends, that maybe we take a quick pause in the presentation, get the mayor and Councilor Rosner. They're about to get on a bus, and when they're on the bus, they may not have access to cell service. Let's do the business that we need to do because of the FEMA regulations, which we'll get to, get that done.
Definitely come right back.
Then come back so we can ask questions, because I know that council may have some questions for you.
Please stay.
Sorry, Chief.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, so we're dialing China. Do we want to get started on this part of the agenda then? Okay. So as kind of mentioned there, we'll go ahead and take a pause on the presentation, move into the public hearing. And Sylvia, I'll turn it over to you to read all the important bits.
The Sherwood City Council will hold a public hearing this evening to hear testimony on ordinance 2018-009, amending chapter 16.
Can I call Keith separately?
I can, or if he's not by, I can.
I would call him separately because we're going to be walking, so
Just wait a minute
he's going to call you separately.
hold on a second here.
Council President, I'll start it over once we get them online.
Okay, thanks.
You are the acting mayor tonight, so I suggest that you sing.
I don't have any.
You sure about that?
although I did see Pippin this weekend, and that's a fantastic musical, I'll say that. It certainly is.
Good evening, this is Keith.
Mayor Mays, we got you on speaker here. Mayor Mays, we got you.
Yeah, good evening, guys.
Good evening.
Good evening, and we have,
Councilor Rosen, are you there?
I am here too. I'm going to have to step away from Keith because I'm getting a weird stereo thing here going.
Everybody does.
all right. So Mayor and Councilor Rosner, we are just going to get underway in reading the ordinance, and so Sylvia is going to read the ordinance for us, and we are going to move this along in as much of an expedited fashion as we can for you guys.
The Sherwood City Council will hold a public hearing this evening to hear testimony on ordinance 2018-009, amending chapters 16.10 definitions and 16.134 floodplain overlay of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code as they relate to the regulation of development within the floodplain in Sherwood and declaring an emergency. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. We will hear a staff report, questions, if any, by the City Council for staff. We will receive any written testimony. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and the time will be limited to 4 minutes per person. Any interested person may present testimony. We will then close the public hearing. No other comments will be heard from the public. Final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the council, discussion by the council. This is the first hearing before the City Council on this item. Generally, the council would hold 2 hearings before making a decision. A second hearing on this item will not occur due to the emergency clause in the ordinance. The council, in accordance with the city charter, council reserves the right to make a decision at the close of this hearing by a unanimous vote of all sitting council members. If you wish to speak, please fill out the testimony form and submit it to the city recorder. The council president will recognize people wishing to speak, and any questions should be addressed through the council president. When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record, as this hearing will be recorded, and limit your testimony to 4 minutes.
Thank you, Sylvia. And Erica Palmer, Planning Manager, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, City Council. So tonight you're going to be hearing some proposed plan amendments to our floodplain overlay. So just recently on October 2nd, City Council adopted by reference the updated FEMA firm maps and the flood insurance study. On September 10th, just last month, we were contacted by FEMA staff stating that additional text amendments to our code were needed. And when we asked why we were receiving these comments so late in the process, FEMA stated that they hire code auditors during the time that they review the firm maps, and during this audit process is when these additional amendments were brought to light. But we weren't the only city in Oregon receiving these comments pretty late in the game, because they are required to be adopted by October 19th. We were just 1 out of 40 cities in Oregon who received this late notice. So amendments in your staff report this evening. We have some amendments to Chapter 16.10 definitions and 16.134 our floodplain overlay. So the amendments in the definitions chapter clarify some definitions, and also some of the definitions are new, just relating to development in the floodplain. I'm not going to go over each and every one. And then we have some updated duties and responsibilities of the floodplain administrator, Bob Galati, our city engineer. He is the floodplain administrator with the city of Sherwood. So those duties don't impact property owners. They just impact internal staff and what we do and what we carry out and how we administer the floodplain. And then there are some general updated standards and specific standards dealing with manufactured home siting within the floodplain, how they are anchored. All of this code language that you see in your packet tonight actually comes from the FEMA model ordinance. It's specific language that they like to see in floodplain ordinances throughout the state and pretty much throughout the country. And some of those general standards include, they include the manufactured home manual for people to review when they site manufactured homes, and also septic systems near or within the floodplain. So the review criteria, all the text amendments have to be consistent with with our comprehensive plan and any state, federal, and regional regulations. The text amendments tonight, they are in compliance with state statutes and local ordinances. And then any text amendments have to be consistent with the transportation planning rule, but the transportation planning rule doesn't apply to this situation because it is not a development-specific amendment or development. So our findings, it's necessary for FEMA compliance, it's consistent with our comprehensive goals and policies, and it does not conflict with metro or statewide planning goals. We sent out public notice to our agency partners, we advertised in the Times, and we sent individual notices again to the 60 properties that that actually abut the floodplain. And just for a little context, we only have 2 properties here in Sherwood that actually utilize the National Flood Insurance Program. So tonight, we hope that you pass this ordinance through the emergency ordinance process, just due to the fact that it's urgent that these amendments are necessary by October 19th, which is this Friday at midnight. And with that, I can answer any questions that you have.
And does anybody have any questions? Okay. So now I believe I would open it up for public comments. Public hearing is open for comments. Any? Hearing none, we'll close public comments. I guess now we just move into a motion. Oh, Mayor or Councilor Rosner, any questions from you before we proceed?
Not for me. This is Councilor Rosner. No, I'm good to go.
All right. So do we have a motion to approve?
I motion to read, caption, and adopt ordinance 2018-009, amending chapters 16.10 definitions and 16.134 floodplain overlay of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code as they relate to the regulation of development within the floodplain in Sherwood, and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance 2018-009, amending Chapter 16.10 definitions and 16.134 floodplain overlay of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code as they relate to the regulations of development within the floodplain in Sherwood and declaring an emergency. Councilor Rosner, how do you vote?
Yes. Aye.
Thank you. Councilor Griffin?
Aye.
Councilor Browse?
Aye.
Councilor Young?
Aye.
Councilor Kuiper?
Aye.
Council President Garland?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Councilor Rosner. Are you guys going to disconnect at this time?
Do we have to do a second? Or?
Yep. Yes, we are. Have a great day, guys. Yep. Thanks.
Have fun.
Enjoy your trip. So are we good on that one?
Awesome.
Thank you. All right.
Excellent.
So we've
A little nervous about that one.
Erica, thank you. Thank you to
Thank
you
you,
and your
Erica.
staff for, I know this was not easy. So thank you, and everybody appreciates the work. All right. So we will move back then into the presentation. Chief Weiss, if you would be so kind as to come back and continue. We were talking about nozzle diameters and sodas, and you had a story. And you had a story to share with us, and I and I interrupted. So
I want the story.
I have to think about it. So the story goes that we've been doing years of, I shouldn't say years, the last year intensive training with the new equipment. And not that long ago, there was a fire, happened in the middle of the night. The front of the house was fully involved. It was a wood deck in front of the house, wood siding. The fire quickly went up the side of the house and into the attic space. And we've been teaching crews to get out of the station as fast as you can. Drop what you're doing and get out. That's one of the only things we can affect in terms of responses. We can get up and we can get out fast. And the crews have been doing that. It's a cultural change and it's fantastic. So they get out, they respond as quickly as they can. They arrive in 6 minutes. Within 8 minutes, the water was on the fire and they started an aggressive interior attack. I received a text from the battalion chief on the scene. He said they're doing an interior search in the rafters. And if you're familiar with building construction, the rafters hold the roof up. and they were on the first floor. But because the fire got into the attic so quickly, the rafters and the roof came down onto the first floor. So 2 minutes after arrival, they found the first fire victim. 2 minutes later, they found the second. And then 14 minutes after the call came in, they found the third fire victim and pulled them all out from the house, and the fire was knocked down. So it just speaks to the training that we're involved with. It speaks to the new equipment, the culture to continue to train and drill and get better at what we do. Although we've been doing it for hundreds of years, we can still get better. And so that's what we continue to do, whether it's equipment or training. So that was my story.
Good story.
Thank you.
Thank you. So what else have we been doing in the past year? Well, we've been doing a large undertaking for our SCBAs. And our SCBAs are the air packs we wear on our back. It connects to the mask so we can breathe in IDLH, and they can be heavy. How long did you have to wear it for? Just during the burn to learn, right?
Just during the training,
Yeah, they are. They can be heavy. They're getting lighter, believe it or not, but yes, they are heavy. So ours are going to expire in the next 5 years, and coincidentally, so are other agencies in Washington County. So being a collaborative partner, we're working through the Fire Defense Board with the other agencies in Washington County to secure a grant and fund SCBAs for all the county fire agencies. This is a heck of an undertaking. We have 450 members. There's hundreds with all the other agencies combined too. So it's a lot of people to get on the same page. And so we've been working through the evaluation process. The recommendation is going through to County Defense Board, I believe, next week. And then we will seek the grant to try and fund this. As you can imagine, it's fairly costly to replace all these SCBAs. So that's one of the things we've been doing with equipment. If you remember back to the first slide, it talked about EMS calls. 75 to 80% of our calls are EMS. So we spend countless hours, EMTs, for training to get better at what we do. On the left-hand side, that's a picture that shows these are the new kits that we got for all of the apparatus that we send out. So all of our EMS equipment comes in a kit, and before it came in a kit that was kind of like a fishing tackle box. It wasn't super ergonomic, it wasn't organized super well, and so we had some firefighters that came forward and said we could do better. So they went through an evaluation process and designed these kits that put things in the right places, easier to get to. And as you know, in an emergency medical scene, seconds count. So if we can get to that equipment just a little bit quicker and everybody knows where it is, it's in the same place, we can do a better job of what we're doing. So that happened this year. We replaced all the kits and all the apparatus. On the right-hand side, this is pretty cool. If you're familiar, with the laryngoscope, this is the tube that you would stick down a patient's throat so you can secure an airway. I know that's a very basic way of describing it, but that's kind of what happens, and I am just a basic. So what we found was it's difficult. You're blind. You're trying to see down a patient's throat of where you're going to place this tube. And technology, we're not afraid of technology. We see what's available in the market, and now they have video laryngoscopes. So we invested in video laryngoscopes. So now at the end of that tube, the first tube you stick into the patient, there's a camera on the end of it. So even somebody like me who's not trained to do this technique, I can actually do it with ease. So this is some of the new equipment that came on board this year to improve our EMS. And the last thing I had for you is that next year in May, we will be going to the voters to renew our option, our local option levy that we have right now. As you may recall, it's 45 cents per thousand. We used the levy funds to get 42 retain 42 firefighters. Now we're up to 79 firefighters and 6 support positions, people that help us do our job. We bought property for 5 fire stations, and we've already built 1. So next May, we'll be going back to the voters for that renewal. We'll bring more information to the council and to the citizens of Sherwood before that happens. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions. Was that the first time they called in from China?
Yeah.
They just left yesterday, so.
Wow. Technology.
Yeah, I think they probably don't know what time it is right now. I'm sure it's been a hectic day for them, but I appreciate
It's like
that they.
11 o'clock? 11?
Yeah.
11 o'clock.
In the morning. Yeah.
Morning.
They're already hitting it, getting out, doing the tourism stuff, so.
I don't know how we would have done that before, I suppose.
Questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just would like to say that your Citizens Academy that you guys do is it's really great opportunity. So I know Counselor Browse and I did that back in April, I think, the last one they did. And it was really a great experience and eye-opening. And yeah, we did wear those packs for maybe an hour or so, but that was a long hour.
It's important to bring people in to see what we do, you know, behind the curtains, if you will, because there's a lot that goes on. It's not really what everybody imagines it will be, And so it's good to bring people in, and then they can share with their friends and people they know so they understand exactly what it is we do.
Well, it was everything, like from the start of the morning, from a fake emergency, which we all didn't even know was going on, which was probably the purpose of that, and going into, the medical mode and doing that, to, learning to pull the hoses. And by the way, your trainers did a great job because they explained your whole new hose process and how you guys got new hoses and that it went from the ground up and they all had a say. So they did a good job explaining that. And then, we got to put fires out and cut cars open, and then we got to spend the rest of the day in a firehouse in the night and go on calls.
Which station did you go to?
I was at Sherwood.
You were in Sherwood, okay.
Renee was at Tigard somewhere?
The busy one.
51?
Shoals Ferry, yeah.
Station 53?
Yeah.
Progress.
It's kind of like the Cadillac of fire stations.
I happened to be the captain there when it was built.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Wow.
It really is.
So I'm going to be going to Citizens Academy.
I might have heard that.
Now, can I put in a request for a station?
You may.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm teasing. But yeah, I'm looking forward to trying on the SCBAs. For the kind of job that I do for my career, I had to be trained on an SCBA use for hazardous materials response. And this was probably 25 years ago, they had us play a game of volleyball, fully outfitted. And of course, we had to wear the full gear and play volleyball until, the last people standing. And it was really hard.
We don't do that, right?
Wait until you have the pack on.
Yeah, we don't do that.
It was really hard, but it was fun. It was great. And so I'm definitely looking forward to participating.
Wait until you have those big old gloves on and you're trying to do the
So
coupling on.
for those at home, how often are these held? How can people, if they're interested, sign up?
Excellent question. I don't know if there's an actual time frame, and Stefan, you can jump in if there is a time frame. But I don't think there's a set time frame of when we do it. Sometimes it's word of mouth. A lot of times it's people in the community that we interact with and collaborate with. Hey. You all know Stefan Myers?
Welcome, Stefan.
He is our DAO in the South, and jump in. Yeah.
So twice a year, we hold those.
Okay.
Right now, we usually have it for our leaders within the community to be a part of. But at any time, somebody could put in a request to do a ride-along with one of our crews to get an experience. We have a variety of opportunities for people to get an experience like you did, but specifically, we have one twice a year for most of our leaders around our district.
I think it's a great idea. Do you also train like community emergency response teams? Do you ever have folks from local CERTs come and, be part of a overnighter like that, a community academy?
That would be hard for me to answer. It wouldn't surprise me if we've had that over the years. We do train with our CERT teams at a fairly regular basis, so they do get to see what we do. They've been a part of some of our drills, but I don't know about the whole staying at the station thing. I wouldn't know.
Okay.
Wouldn't surprise me, though.
Yeah. Well, you certainly create a culture of innovation at TVFNR. And then also the emergency kits, those were researched by your team members, and that was created in-house by the team members?
They purchased them commercially, but they were the ones that did the research, and they did all that to find out what would work the best. They tried several versions of the same types of kits to find the one that worked for us the best. So a lot of those things actually start ground level. Firefighters have an idea. They see something that's not working, and so we have a process to bring it forward, and then we evaluate it, and if we can fund it, we do, and then we move forward. So that's.
And Narcan is part of that kit now, correct?
Narcan?
Is it Narcan?
We've
is that
always,
what it's called?
we've
always
had,
had it?
Yeah, we've always had Narcan. Our police partners are now carrying Narcan.
Oh, that's the difference. Okay. And how many calls do you think you're going on that you're having to use that now?
Oh gosh.
A lot? Is it increasing?
I would have to do a
Okay.
data dive to give you a good.
That Narcan's, that's the
No.
unit? Oh, I don't know
That's-
what
For,
it is.
for drug overdoses.
drug
Oh, right, okay, yes, that.
Thank you. I was like, what is not?
Sorry, I was gonna explain too.
Us non-druggies, we didn't know what that was.
Anyone can get that and put that in a car, right?
Right now, what you see is you'll see police agencies, because there are times when they can get to a call like that first, a drug type call. Typically EMS will wait on a drug overdose situation, and so putting it in the hands of police, they're able to get there quicker and they can administer it without much training. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Captain Hanlon told me that he's going to be doing some training with law enforcement here in Sherwood with the station,
Wow.
the Sherwood station, to help them administer it the correct way. So it's a good collaborative.
Oh, so our police department and our fire department are friendly with each other?
Friendly rock.
It's just not you.
History. I would like to mention, since I have a chance, Captain Moyson, will you stand up? So Captain Craig Moyson is the Sherwood Fire Station captain. He is actually the guy in charge of that station here in Sherwood. He does an excellent job. He comes from Beaverton, which is a house of lots of people and personalities, and he comes down here to Sherwood, and he is fantastic interacting with the city. He did that in Beaverton. He will do the same in Sherwood, and he does a great job interacting with police. Outstanding job. And his crew, you guys can wave. That's just one of the shifts here. Yeah.
No, thank
Well, when I was at the Sherwood one overnight, and they had to make a room upstairs for me, but it was very comfortable. Your data was pretty accurate. 80% of the calls we went on were medical, and that was surprising. That was surprising to me. I mean, I didn't realize that. It was mostly medical calls.
It truly is amazing how the data comes in and how it plays out, and it's accurate. And it's almost to the point where you can predict when and where a call is going to come in as you track the data. And I can't even describe all the data points that we use. It's immense. Thank goodness for a planning division that does an excellent job. But they sift through it and they put things in the right place. We're happy to have them. I will say one thing about the Community Academy. Usually what people wonder is, did we tell the crews to do something different? Did we tell them to act a certain way? And you might remember this. They may have asked you that question when you did your debrief after the Community Academy. And the answer is no. These are fine people. This is what they do. They're happy to share their living room and their rooms with you. And they would do the same thing whether you were there standing in front of them or not. So we're super proud of them. Yep.
I have a question for you about the hazmat truck. So what is your standard radius of influence for one truck? And how do you determine how many hazmat trucks you need and where those would be located?
Sure. Hazmat's a little different. So hazmat, we have two. We have one that's located at that Progress station, and then we have one that's in the Tualatin station. So it's a split team, half the team's in each location. That's actually a state team resource. So the state divides up the entire state into areas of sections, and there's a fire department that essentially sponsors the hazmat team. They're the hazmat team for that area. Our area goes to the coast for hazmat. So
Wow.
we'll go all the way to the coast. We go down to roughly North Marion, just north of Salem is where we go to the south, and then we border up against Portland, border up against Clackamas on our eastern border. So the hazmat goes everywhere. Trucks are a little bit different. Trucks have to do with mileage and the size of buildings in that area. So for ISO, we talked about that before. It's five buildings of 5 or more stories in an area usually requires a truck, and to get your maximum points in ISO. So trucks have a lot to do with how long will it take them to get to a scene. We like to get there within 8 minutes. It's not always possible. It's a heavy asset. It's a big resource. We can't put them everywhere, so we try and put them where they're going to do the most good, the most effect. So I don't know that we really have, if you looked at our map of where the trucks are located, if it works out exactly per mileage. But we try to put them where they're going to do the most good for the.
But you're working with ODOT hazmat teams then, right? Or that be something completely different?
I'm not familiar with that.
The ODOT hazmat, okay.
ODOT has some response rigs that do respond. We partner with them a little bit. You'll see the incident response rigs on the freeway, the trucks, the pickup trucks that drive around.
Right.
We will interact with them to a certain extent, but typically we're working with DEQ and the state of Oregon.
Okay. Maybe they don't have hazmat trucks. Thank you.
If I got that wrong, Brian was
No,
also a
I'm thinking
hazmat
maybe
guy, too,
ODOT
so-
doesn't have actual hazmat trucks. Maybe you guys are it, and they just have the sign.
Yeah.
You guys are doing the hard work.
Could be.
Okay.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
Any more
Yeah, and
questions?
thank you so much.
Thank you again for
Yeah,
coming in, and thank you
thanks.
for dealing with our interruption. I appreciate that. So, all right.
Go Sherwood.
That's right. City manager report.
Council, I have a number of items, especially since we have a fairly light agenda. First, I want to do another plug for the next Vision Summit, which is coming up later this month. It's called Pie in Planning. The team that's working on the comp plan update on October 29th is going to have an open house with fall treats with different kinds of pie over at the Sherwood Center for the Arts. And then from 6:30 to 8:30, there'll be a summit. There'll be an opportunity to take a look at a lot of the work that's been going on for months and weigh in on some policy choices and help ultimately the Planning Commission and the City Council make some choices down the line in terms of some trade-offs that I think come into play in terms of, as Carrie described, some citizens want this and they also want this, and those two conflict. So it's an important time for the community to participate in the project. The information's on our website. It's also out on social media, but it's coming up on October 29th, and I really encourage citizens to get involved, because we're getting to a point where there's some draft policies that are being considered that we really needed input right now. So I wanted to put a plug in for that. Am I missing anything, Julia, on that? Julia's come up because we've been hearing in town Cedar Creek Plaza, which is the project behind Providence, is getting very close to completion. A number of the tenants are getting very excited about opening in early November. I think more importantly, the new signal is nearing completion in front of the police station at Borchers and Edie, and we're starting to get lots of questions from folks about how that intersection is going to function and how can I turn and do all kinds of different turning movements once things happen in a few weeks. So I thought Julia might want to go through that just for the public, anyone who's watching live or is going to watch later on, that it would be worthwhile to kind of go through this and then answer any questions you guys might have as counselors. So with that.
And I will do my best to answer any questions. So the first slide is basically what you have there today. This is the entrance to the Providence Medical building. If you notice, basically it's one lane kind of coming up to here. It splits into a left turn lane onto Borchers, and then one through lane to about here. And then it splits into a right turn, a left turn, and a through lane here. So that's what you have today. With the new, let's see if I can, with the new configuration, this is a little busy, obviously. This is actually the striping plan. If you notice, there's some fatter arrows. I actually drew those in because they weren't on there, but I think it's important to be able to really see how everything goes. The littler arrows are what my understanding is are actually proposed to be on the ground. But you'll notice that coming up to Borchers, it's 2 lanes through as well as a left turn, and it actually starts about here is where it goes from 1 lane to 2 to 3 lanes as you move towards this intersection. So you have 2 full through lanes here going across the Borchers intersection, and then you'll continue and have the 2 through, and then it goes to the left turn through and right turn lane. And that's really the biggest change at that intersection, is that you're having a lot more capacity coming up to that Borchers intersection and through the Borchers intersection. I think there's a little bit of other just minor widening, but that's the big change.
So Julia, I'm questioning that coming out of the Providence, and is that only one way out of Providence?
There's a left turn arrow.
That is probably my bad.
I was just going to ask that question.
You can still get in.
Yes,
at that
you can still get in. I think I was
arrow happy.
Yeah, I have to look at that again. I thought I was copying the movements appropriately, but clearly not.
So the left arrow should be overlaid on top of the one that goes straight or right.
Yes.
Because from that 1 lane you can go left, straight, or right out of the property. So is that the only exit?
That is the only exit. There will be a right-in only off of 99.
Not a right out?
They're not a right out. And part of the reason, it's not to say that at some point in the future they couldn't, but right now What ODOT would have required in order to do a right out is
The
a
bridge.
significant extension of
Right.
99 that wasn't proportionate to this development, and
That's
they
right.
weren't willing to do it.
Oh, okay.
So Julie,
okay.
asking some questions on how the lights would be set up then. So if we're coming on Borchers, is there going to be a left turn signal onto Edie?
No, I
Or is that a yield
don't
to?
know
to green?
that. The signal is, I can certainly get that information and come back to you. The signal is actually permitted and regulated by ODOT, and I was just looking at the striping configuration. I'm sure we have that information, I just don't have it.
It's hard to tell because they haven't taken off the bags
Right.
yet.
Correct.
And even though
I
it
see.
might be 3 lights, it might be a blinking left, green, that it blinks when it's like,
Yeah.
I think
Or-
in either
blinking
situation, even if it is a yield, onto oncoming traffic turning from Borchers onto Edie towards 99, I think just having that intersection controlled is going to be amazing, because anybody who's ever tried to turn left at that intersection around 5 p.m. knows that it's a lost cause. So I think controlling that intersection will be helpful.
And it's
so.
important to note, it will not be perfect all of the time. Make no mistake. But as no intersection is, and but with the additional capacity, with the lanes coming into Borchers and the signalization, it should be certainly better than it is right now most of the time.
So I have a question for you. On the, let's see, on coming from Highway 99, going on to Edie, that doesn't change, right?
Very
Just to
little.
confirm,
I mean, yeah,
okay.
I think there might have been some tweaks, but as far as the configuration,
Doesn't
it didn't
change, okay.
They might have done a few little things just to make ODOT happy. I did, see some stuff happening out there, but it was minor. It wasn't a significant change.
So that leads me to my question, and that is, how many cars are they going to allow to stack up between the light off of Highway 99 and then the light changing at Borchers? And
Yeah.
that depends on the time of day, obviously, but I'm assuming those lights will be synchronized, because that is a fairly short distance between taking a bunch of traffic off of 99 and filtering them down through the side road.
Yeah, so I don't think I can answer exactly how many they'll allow. It is going to be coordinated signals so that you
good.
aren't getting through and then having a red light. I do know that when we were doing this initial land use review, they had, some really detailed modeling that showed, how the cars went through the intersection and continued on through the intersection. I can certainly find out how many cars it has the capacity for and get back to you on that. But again, that is actually not expected to be from 99 to
the project.
Borchers is not
Okay.
expected to be an issue. I think where you might have issues when it's not perfect all of the time is people coming from Edie to 99, backing up through that intersection of Borchers.
And so can we expect to have the parking lot that was closed off? When you come into the main entrance to Providence, it used to be that you could choose to turn into the parking lot of Providence fairly quickly, fairly easily. And since, it's on the other photograph, but since construction started, they created a new berm so that you cannot, so this has all been closed off. The first.
So that actually, way more information.
Which makes sense, because.
So this is actually.
Traffic control.
The developer basically entered into an agreement with Providence that they exchanged this for a new parking lot over here. So if you drive in there now, if you remember, 6 months, a year ago, the first thing they did was built a new parking lot over here. So this is actually where the assisted living facility is being constructed right now, and then there's a new Providence parking lot here.
But I guess my question is you can now go into Providence, into the main, the middle lane, right there, and you can go all the way around. It used to be able, you could get out that way, but it's closed off now.
That's correct, and that will
And I'm
continue.
assuming it'll stay, because that would impede traffic flow.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I couldn't see where you were pointing,
Yeah,
so I thought
apologize.
I knew.
It's hard for me to visually describe.
Pointers up there.
I know, I should have turned around and pointed. Thank you.
I just wanted to highlight this, and we're getting very close. I know when I drive through there, especially at night, Julie and I, there's no lane striping, and the streetlights are out because of the construction, and it's like, even I was like, which lane am I supposed to be in? And we're almost there. It will be clearer once the project is done in a few weeks. As I've said in previous council meetings, those businesses cannot open until that signal is functioning. So it's all about the signal, and ODOT has worked very, very hard, and the contractors, to get that lined up so the businesses can open in early November. So we're very close to having that signal operational. I'm sure ODOT will need to tweak and make some adjustments as they have their models, but then there's reality. And I'd want to stress that those changes in terms of timing are controlled by ODOT, not by the city of Sherwood. We always get concerns from citizens about the timing of the lights and getting across 99, and I always tell folks that you have to talk to ODOT. They control the timing of the signals, so.
They'll probably be out there messing around with the lights for a few weeks,
Yeah.
I would imagine, to
Yeah.
tweak it.
Well, and that's something I wanted to talk about. I wanted to mention that there is nothing wrong with the citizens of Sherwood complaining to the city about that situation. I mean, sometimes we have to be the conduit that speaks to the county and says, hey, we are getting a lot of feedback. So I would hope that the city has a plan that on opening day, opening week, that we, if Washington County doesn't come out, that we are monitoring the situation and we can provide them feedback and say.
It's ODOT, not
It's
Washington
ODOT.
County.
ODOT.
Washington
But
County.
yeah, we coordinate a lot with them, and yes, we
Right.
certainly would do that and make sure they understand that there are issues. But the expectation is that there
Right.
aren't going to be any issues.
Well, I mean, as you said, on paper,
Yeah.
Yes.
and their concern is that it doesn't back up onto their highway. But if it makes a mess out of Borchers and people can't get in and out of Walgreens and get in and out of the ice rink, then we have an issue. And that's what I hope we would do. We would contact whomever we need to at ODOT and say, we have an issue, send your team to look at this or whatever.
But Councilor Griffin, I would also argue, for lack of a better term, that citizens should contact their state agency as well,
Yeah, absolutely.
because they're the ones that can adjust the timing. And if they don't hear from citizens and they only hear from City Hall, it doesn't have the same effect. It's a state agency funded by state tax dollars. Citizens should let their state agency know this is not working.
Maybe we
So-
should post that phone number somewhere.
That's a good idea, because if I had to call ODOT and complain about the road, I don't have any idea who I would call.
We can find that number. and
I would call the mayor and say, who do you know? I would call Sean, because he works in Salem. He must know the governor personally and work down the hall. I would call you and say, how do we fix this? So,
And I hope Julia is correct that this is actually an improvement and it functions properly most of the time. There are going to be certain times of the day where it's not going to be optimal.
That's not
And it's
optimal
bad.
now
Yeah,
either,
it's bad
so
now.
Not optimal now.
it's going to be
Best-
better
It
than
will
it
be
is.
better.
best
Yeah,
laid
and that's,
plans.
we do 100% expect it will be significantly better, certainly better than it would be without the signal and this
Right,
business.
right.
But there is really no intersection that is without problem anytime,
Yep.
and so I just hope
I
that
think
you're
most times-
prepared when people are like, this is new, and it's not.
And most times of the day, that's not a bad intersection.
No,
It's just
no,
really
yeah.
at that rush hour and we get people cutting through other neighborhoods to get
Correct.
home, so. All right. Any more questions for Julia?
Thank
This
you for
was
that.
helpful. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thank you.
I think hopefully some people at home are
Do we know
watching this.
when? A week, 2 weeks?
They have been advertising November 1st, I think November 5th is one of the openings, November 1st. They've got some commitments, I think, to their leasees, or leaseors. So that's their hope, and I think my understanding is that they're still on target for that, so that's.
Because I did just see Hops and Drops advertise that their opening date is November 5th.
Correct.
so.
Yeah.
Old.
Yep.
All right.
I
Yeah,
saw that too, yeah.
And again, to reiterate, the city will not grant a certificate of occupancy
Right.
to any of those buildings until this intersection is functioning.
That's how it should be, so it's safe, yeah.
And then I have one other item that I'm going to have Captain Hanlon talk about. Another new program that started 6 days ago in town. So speed cameras went live on Highway 99 at the 2 existing intersections that have red light cameras that have had red light cameras for years. So it's been 6 days of those cameras being live, and I wanted Captain Hanlon to talk about kind of initial numbers of citations and answer any questions you might have. Would you like me to go there or here? You can stay there, sir.
So speed on green is what we're calling it. And the intersections are the current ones that the red lights or the photo red lights are at. So the 3 are going to be north and southbound at 12th and Sherwood Road, Highway 99. I think there's been some confusion. I've seen it on social media where they think that maybe the cameras were 12th and Sherwood Road. This is all north and south Highway 99 enforcement. So it's north and south at 12th and Sherwood Road. And then northbound it's Sunset. So basically coming from Newburgh, to give you a direction.
Only northbound?
Only northbound.
Wow.
Now, there was a study done, and obviously this was all, go back to the fire guys and data. It was all driven by data and kind of what we had seen. And it was based on a year's study of traffic as far as speeds, traffic counts, our data from just our cameras on Redflex and the issues that we've seen with crash data there as well at both those intersections. So that was how it was determined to enforce the speed at those 3 intersections. They went live October 10th. Actually, 2 of them did. So northbound at Sunset went live, and northbound at 12th and Sherwood went live. Monday, southbound at 12th and Sherwood went live. They had some technical issues getting them up. But all 3 are live right now. Just to give you an idea, and this is nothing that was unexpected because we know just like with the photo red light cameras that there's always a spike at the initial onset of these programs. But in the last 6 days, we've had 1,000, and this is, let me give you the time frame. So this went live on the 10th around noon. I pulled the data today at around 2, and as of that time frame, we had 1,076 violations of speed.
That's 11 miles an hour or over.
Yeah, and thank you for the clarification. That was set, so speed on green is set by the legislation to be no less than 11 over. So 56 basically because our speed zone's on 99 and our city limits are 45 in that area. So 1,070, what did I tell you?
76.
1,076. All of a sudden that's 6 and 9, sorry. 1,076 violations that were captured. Of that, so Redflex does a review. I don't know if you guys remember the program. So they'll do an initial review to cameras, images, plates, and things like that. And then they go ahead and send them to us. And of that, they've sent 923.
That they think are citationable.
Yes. And at this point, to date, of those, we've reviewed 366 of them. And of those 366, we've approved 351. So we in the department have only dismissed 15 for a variety of reasons, whatever that may be. So we still have about 500 some odd in the queue that our officers are still trying to get through. And that was as of 2 o'clock today.
Right.
So, these come in every few days as Redflex gets through them and gets them into our queue.
So are you able to figure out how many hours it's taking in terms of personnel to do this?
That's a good question. I always say it's about a minute per citation, probably. I mean, if you're going to round it out, just by going through some of the things you have to go through, some are going to be a little faster, some will be a little slower. That's just on the initial review. There's a lot of back office things that take place that we don't necessarily hear about or account for because it's not the officers that are doing it, it's court. It's our admin assistants that are doing it, and so there's a lot of that as this all works itself out here in the next 3 to 6 months, we'll probably have a really good idea of where we sit in staff needs or those kind of things that come up.
Okay.
You know, and it speaks for itself. We knew that there was a speeding issue on 99. It's been difficult for officers to enforce it, especially in there because we have the culvert there that we can't turn on vehicles, nor can we sit on the sides of the road and try and enforce it because it's more of a risk for us to be out there than anything. And the reality of it is that I think that people just become comfortable in coming from a 55 zone and just cruising that speed or
staying that speed.
Yeah, through town. We got the high school coming in there. We've got a lot more congestion that I think hopefully this will change some of those behaviors. And I'm hoping it's going to change it, especially in the next couple of years because of the school, because of, we're going to have a whole different dynamic. And I know that the chief from TVF&R talked about that. I mean, things change. And so we have to adjust because now we're going to have a completely different kind of population coming into that intersection. Young drivers, school buses, a lot more congestion than we probably ever had. So it's good timing. And like I said, hopefully this will change a lot of that behavior.
And I think our hope is, like with the red light cameras, when they first went on, it spiked and then it's leveled out. And so because people change their behaviors.
Yes.
So that's.
Yeah, and from some of the data they've had from some of the other cities, it's followed right in line with the camera programs. And again, it's going to be just getting the word out there because I don't suspect that the data will be any different for speed on green as it has been for photo red light in the fact that it's the transient population that is, about 92% that commit these violations.
Moving around.
Yeah, it's very little of the Sherwood population or even the 97140 zip code that they actually pull that data from that is cited. So, situational awareness and all those things, we become aware of it and we adjust our driving because obviously we're doing it every day and it's a lot of that transient population that is coming.
So you're saying that 92% of those are out of town?
Out of that are cited are out of the 97140 zip code.
It would be an interesting study to figure out how that would affect school safety. If people in Sherwood, coming in and out of Sherwood, are in the 97140 zip code, they've learned to change their behavior. But people that are speeding through once or twice in a while or whatever they're doing might speed anyway.
True. It is true. The one thing, and I know people don't like to hear this, but there's a lot of the cities around us are now incorporating speed on green. So it's not going to be something new for as this kind of spreads out across the metro area. Portland has it, Tualatin's looking at it,
Beaverton has it.
Beaverton's looking at it. So people are becoming aware of the fact that these things are in place now, and it's hopefully not going to catch them off guard.
So on the radio, they talked about, it was probably yesterday morning, they talked about the city of Beaverton and their cameras went live a while back. And I thought they said, I know it's on a scale, but I thought they said the initial ticket was 180. Do we know what ours is? Can we say that out loud so anybody watching will know? Of course, those people aren't watching, but because they don't live in our zip code. But do we know what that is? What that?
Of course, you'd put me on the spot.
That's all right. Is it more than 100? Less than 2?
It is. It's scalable. So it's 5 miles per hour over. So 1 through 10 is such and such. 11 through.
All right. It's still going to be painful no matter what.
It's going to be. I want to say it's 165 for 11 and over to whatever it is. No, I can't remember.
Beaverton was like 185.
That's the number I remember.
Yeah, maybe it is 185. I mean, you're going to get up to 265. I mean, you're doing 21 and over. Again, there's that one caveat to it. If you're doing 21 and over and it's red.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
You could potentially be cited for both. Yeah.
And so I guess I have kind of a statement that I'll put in the form of a question, so humor me, I guess. Just to allay some of the things that I've read, the speed limit on 99W has not been changed as part of this speeding camera. It's always been 45 in that section, and that is still the same. And the 11 miles an hour is not set by the city of Sherwood. That is a state legislative amount for the cameras. So in theory, people who don't speed, this will not have a negative impact on their behavior, their pocketbook. It's just the people that are driving inconsiderately through town.
Yeah, and I guess to reiterate that, the signs have been out there ever since I've been here coming in. It's clearly identifiable that you're coming in from
a camera icon on there that says photo enforced
to a 45 zone, and it does say photo enforcement ahead. And it's just reminding people that, hey, you need to pay attention and adjust your speeds accordingly. And I mean, even 11 miles an hour is pretty graceful.
I know.
And
I
actually, it's
agree.
10, I guess, because if you're doing 11 over, you're going to get the citation. But
Right.
55, and it's not going to go.
Okay.
Two other kind of comments. One, I hope these numbers go down.
Absolutely.
As we track this data over the coming weeks and months, that we do see a change and these numbers go down. Because that means people are driving safer through our community along that state highway. The other thing that I've seen online, some commentary, there's still this thought that the cameras are issuing the tickets. And the cameras take a picture, and every one of those is reviewed by an officer. An officer is reviewing those and making a determination whether someone violated the law. The cameras don't just decide.
Right.
And I, even after 10 years of photo red light in the Sherwood area and in Oregon, there's still that perception that the cameras are doing the work. And it's just not true. The officers are reviewing those.
Well, and the way that I view this as well, and I did a ride along about a year or two ago with Officer Twig, and he spent a lot of time on 99W looking for people speeding on 99W. And the way that I view these cameras is these allow our officers to maybe spend a little less time on 99W enforcing speed, because we know we're going to be slowing people down coming in and out of town, to focus maybe on some of the other areas within the residential neighborhoods where we get complaints about speeding, in the school zones, in Borchers, 25 miles an hour, or Century, Langer Farm Parkway, which is 25, Oregon Street. I see complaints all the time on Oregon Street. So that's the way that I see this, is that, it is really going to hopefully free up some time for our officers to focus on some areas that will have a direct impact on our citizens, rather than maybe some of the commuters coming through in and out of town. So I'll be a cheerleader for this all day long. I'm not going to complain at all that we're doing this, and I'm glad to hear that we're making a difference already. So.
And I think I'll echo what the city manager said is, hopefully, our goal, and we've seen it even with the red flex and the red photo red light cameras, the reduction. It's been pretty significant, which is encouraging, but it does take manpower. I mean, these citations are just
right.
Maybe the perception might be out there that they're just automatically generated and sent, and that's not the case. I mean, there's unfortunately a lot of time that's put into ensure that we're trying to send and reviewing and making sure that these are legitimate violations, and hopefully the right registered owner before we send these things.
That's right, and it is, I was on a ride-along a couple years ago as well, and we spent with Officer Smith, and we spent a fair amount of time looking and reviewing the red light camera work, and looking at the driver, double checking, and every single one. So there was a person observing and making a decision on whether or not to issue a citation, so every single one.
That's all I had, unless there's any questions.
Actually, I was going to throw it back to Captain Hanlon real quick. We're going to get into council announcements real quick, but I know that coming up on the 27th, there's an event at the police station, the National Drug Take-Back Day. Yeah.
27th or 28th?
City calendar says 27th. Is that, hopefully that's correct?
Well, let me just. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Totally putting you on the spot.
No,
so,
no, I don't have 28th in my mind, but you're right.
Quick plug for that. What can people do? What can they bring in? Is there a certain event or items they can bring in?
I'd like to say just bring what you got, but typically that's what it ends up being. I mean, we do have, syringes are obviously our big no-no, but anything pharmaceutically driven is typically, we're not going to turn you away. I mean, there are some things. The other thing that I'd like to say is that these things go into a box. So we have that open box out there, and we ask people to just drop it in. They can leave it even in a plastic bag. They don't have to have it. They don't have to dump it out. We don't go through there and read the labels, nor does anybody. This thing is sealed up, taped up, weighed, and it's signed by a couple of us to ensure that the integrity, that obviously there's no issues there, and then it's incinerated. It goes down to an incinerator down out of Salem, and it all burns, and so there's no fear of anybody ever getting your info, your medical stuff. I can tell you that the drug take-back box that we have in our department is utilized a ton. We empty that thing nearly weekly, and I think it's great because people are able to get rid of things that they just don't need anymore, and keeps it out of the hands of kids or anybody that may be
out of the water system.
And yet keeping it from being flushed down the toilet. I mean, they have done studies that show that there are low concentrations of prescribed drugs in water supplies, not necessarily Sherwood's, but they have done studies, and it does get into the water system, and sometimes that stuff doesn't filter out. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to see that it's utilized to
So
hear.
bring
It's
it.
awesome.
8 to 5, it's always open.
Yeah, good.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to put you on the spot. All right, so I will turn now to council announcements. Councilor Browse, I'll start with you.
I really don't have much. I was out of town, and my meeting is tomorrow for the library, and then the Friends of the Senior Center next Thursday. But our wonderful library manager did send me a couple notes to share with the community. A reminder that on Wednesday, October 31st, from 3 to 6, it's Sherwood Old Town Halloween trick-or-treating, and the library will have treats and allergy-friendly giveaways. Oh, and City Hall upstairs, awesome. And then also, she wanted to encourage everyone to register to vote, and again, the library has the resources for both English and Spanish to do that.
The deadline
I know, the deadline is today.
I think it actually does go up to midnight, though.
Yeah.
Or 11:59 p.m., so you can go online.
So you can go online and
If you
find those
haven't-
resources.
And there's a way to check. It takes like literally 30 seconds. You type in your name and your
Right.
zip code, I think,
Yep.
and then you see if you registered. So please do that.
Yep, and that's all I have.
Councilor Kuiper.
Yeah, real briefly, had a really good meeting with the Cultural Arts Commission last night, and thanks to the Community Development Director who was there, Julie Hyduk, and was speaking for Jason Waters, I think, is working on this project. But we do have a grant from the Washington County Visitors Association to design and install some new bike racks. And the Cultural Arts Commission had a really great conversation about, really thoughtfully about where to place them, what they might look like, because we had several different designs. And that also includes 2 bike repair stations. So by the end of December, I believe, is when they're supposed to be. Is that right, Julia?
We're saying by the end of this year. It's actually, I think, like January 20th or something like that, but we're going to
Okay.
shoot for. And if I may, I saw Councilor Young kind of look like, what are bike repair stations? But they're basically just stations where you can pump up the tire. There's some tools that are attached so you can fix parts of your bike, and it's just kind of a cool little compact.
And they look like, almost like if you go to downtown Portland, where you pay to get your ticket to put on your car. They kind of look like that. They're tall, skinny, and they have all kinds of different things on them. And they will be properly labeled as a bike repair station. And there'll be 2 of them. And we chose a couple of very visible locations that are going to be related to where the new Cedar Creek Trail is going through. So I think in the next few months, people will start seeing some really cool bike racks, some artistically designed bike racks going in. And then Shanda, who is our Center for the Arts manager, she had wanted to remind everyone that the Family Matinee series, oh my gosh, there's some incredible world-class acts coming starting in January. The Amazing Bubble Man, I guess he's a world-class bubble magician of some kind, and he puts bubbles around people, and you can go inside a bubble, and who knows what else the Bubble Man does. But it's Saturday on a Family Matinee in January. I don't know exactly where that's going to be, but he's coming from, I believe, Edinburgh, Scotland. So, and then the Oregon Ballet Theater 2, if you love the ballet, these are younger students that are just on the verge of going pro, and they're coming to Sherwood. Many other acts coming, so Family Matinee series on Saturdays, and for $5 a piece, you can get in and see some world-class acts. So that's all I have.
Very good. Thanks. Councilor Griffin.
I have 2 things. Let's see, the Sherwood Robin Hood Festival Association, they're having their meeting at 7 p.m. at the Masonic Lodge downtown, and they're looking for, as always, volunteers and ideas and new blood and new ways to do things for the festival, new thoughts, and they would appreciate some help. So if you can show up, you can participate. It's early, but get in early for the good stuff, right? And then the Parks Board will be meeting November 5th at 7 p.m. That's, I think, is the first Monday in November. So that's the next thing coming up for me, and that's it.
Excellent. And Councilor Young.
All right, for me, last week I attended the Washington County Community Development Block Grant Committee meeting, and we're just gearing up for reviewing this year's applications, and so that process is starting. The rest of my meetings are this week. I have Thursday morning, 6:30 a.m. with the YMCA Board of Managers, and 7 p.m. with the Police Advisory, so I will have reports on those next time. I did attend the chamber breakfast last week, and we had a local attorney do a presentation on the Equal Pay Act in Oregon that I believe begins January 1st. That was interesting and will affect a lot of employers, and then he gave a lot of information on that. And I just wanted to give a shout out. I think most of us, all of us, were at the joint meeting with Sherwood School District last Tuesday, and we got a tour of the new high school property, which was just fantastic and huge, and pretty impressed on how they're moving along on that project. So, and then we went back to Laurel Ridge and had a joint meeting with them where we discussed growth and how we move forward together as we plan for growth in our community. So it was a really great night.
It was great, yeah.
Excuse me. All right, thank you. So just a couple announcements. Excuse me. Since last meeting, I was at the Regional Water Providers Consortium Board. Excuse me a second. I need a drink of water. Held in Portland, and so I've mentioned it before. It's a good board. Actually, go to, if you're interested, their website is regionalh2o.org. They have some great resources on water conservation, emergency preparedness. You know, everyone talks about Cascadia earthquake, and so they've got some information on 1 gallon of water per person per day, conservation efforts on aerators for your sinks. Excuse me. And then, let's see.
Short announcement.
I know, I'm dying. There is a Sherwood School District Community Forum tomorrow night at Laurel Ridge at 6 p.m. talking about some of their transformation things, carrying forward what we talked to them with last week. So 6 p.m. Laurel Ridge Cafeteria. Last thing I guess I have to say is it was mentioned previously, Halloween is coming up on October 31st. So drive safe, please slow down, watch out for kids. There's gonna be kids on the road. Sometimes kids wear dark costumes, so please be safe.
And will the Main Street be, will Main Street be having the?
Yeah, so Main
okay,
Street's
great.
having a Halloween trick-or-treat. I believe the center, I don't remember the name, the plaza with Ross, all that. Yeah, they're gonna have some candy as well. So everyone just please drive safe out there. There's a lot of kids on the road that night. So it looks like hopefully we'll have some good weather that week. I don't know. It's been kind of up and down the last couple of years, but I think that is really all I have. Our next meeting is going to be November 6th, which is also election night. So as was mentioned before, please vote. We don't really have any exciting elections here in Sherwood, but there are plenty of ballot measures and candidates on there that will have an impact on us here in Sherwood. So really need to vote this year, everybody. So that's it. Unless anybody has anything else, I'll go ahead and adjourn. We're adjourned.